Hey, welcome everybody to the webinar for Release 1.84. Release 1.84 was posted last evening. And so in a minute here, Sean's going to walk us through the various enhancements that are included in 1.84. Our standard operating procedure for this is we'll keep everybody muted. In the upper right-hand corner, however, you'll see a chat button. So if you have any questions as we go, just go ahead, click that chat button and type in your question. And that'll get relayed to Sean, so we don't have a whole lot of noise and interference while he's actually doing the presentation. So that's how we'll handle questions as we go. And then at the tail end, usually it's about a half hour, 40 minutes of showing new features, and then we'll open up the floor for lively, open conversation about just anything. Okay, so anyway, in 1.84, I don't want to steal Sean's thunder, except to say that, you know, we are very sensitive to the issue of speed. And this is an ongoing battle. We have short-term fixes and long-term fixes, and we've gone through this cycle several times. In 1.84, we did some changes to the program, and we do run metrics. I want everybody to know that we have a very extensive system of trial runs, test runs, and we gauge and evaluate the times for various sizes runs, different times a day, and we collect those statistics. So what I can tell you is those statistics have told us that on very, very complicated jobs, which is where the most egregious slowdowns occurred, we were seeing as much as a 50% improvement on the load time and the update time for those jobs. So anyway, so that's good incremental progress. And just so you know, going forward, we still do have some other incremental processes that we will be investigating and implementing to help marginally increase the speed. And the long-term fix, which we've talked about at each release here for a while, is that we're going to drive more functionality onto the client, which is to say your local computer, versus having to wait and go back to the server system for a complete redo every time you make a change. And that is something that's a major item, and we will be attacking that down the road. Okay, so 1.85, you know, we will have a feature that's important for barn dominiums, which is, you know, letting you enter, let's say, things like second-story windows and doors. And Sean will probably talk about that briefly. 1.8, we're already, you know, largely through a lot of the programming work on 1.85. 1.86, which is right around the corner, we're going to return to doing interior floor plans, which I know everybody's anxiously awaiting. And so that's coming up very quickly on our radar screen. And again, interiors, layouts, and designs and takeoffs for barn dominiums is still very high on our radar screen. Although we encourage you to come in with additional requests. We usually have about 25 features in each release, so we can serve, you know, multiple needs at once, you know, because of the size of our development team. So with that, I'll just hand it over to Sean and invite you to use that chat button here to type in your questions as we go. All yours, John.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Do you see my screen before you mute?
Sure do.
Okay, yep. Good deal. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to go through the new stuff in 1.84. So we'll walk through just kind of the basics of this together. And like he said, if you have more questions, we can get into more detail at the end. There's quite a few things here, so I'm going to kind of just touch on things and show you how to get them set up. But you can always call the help and support line as well. And we will record this and post up to our website in a few days. Paul, are you out there? I just want to check with you and see if you're
unmuted.
Yep, I'm recording now.
Awesome. Okay. So for this webinar, I'm going to jump into the settings. First thing, there's quite a few things here in the settings that we need to look at. The first place I'm going to go is the setup wizard. So I'm going to click on that. This is where you can go to add new materials. You can edit materials. And what I'm going to show you here, I've already set this up, but if you want to use this feature, you'll need to come in here. And this is just a framing feature. And if I scroll down here to the bottom, I added this in earlier. And so this one down here at the bottom, this web header bar joist, I added this in. I'm going to double click on here. To add it, you would click this button here and it would pull this up. I just kind of made this up here, 1.5 inch, 14 depth. And the new thing here is just this bar joist is one of the profiles that you can select. So we have several other profiles, as you can see here, some steel shapes, I-beams, typical dimensional lumber. And then the new one here is the bar joist. I set it up to where I can use it for pretty much anything. It's probably not necessarily accurate, but you can use the shape. And you'll see it here coming up in a job. I just wanted to point it out. I have mine with just random length. There's no part lengths or anything. It's just whatever length it is. Put in a cost and a price here. So I came in here earlier. You can either add in something new to utilize some sort of a web header bar joist, or you can go into something that's already in your database. We could have gone into like this 2x10 that I already have in here, and we could have gone down and changed this to the bar joist. And so what that's going to do, it's going to give a webbed kind of header to look to that in the 3D model. And it's just a representation at this point, but it's something you can use in your 3D models to look more accurate. So yeah, we'll see that in a job. I think that's all we really need to say. That's how you would get that set up. Yeah, while we're in here, the next thing that I'll talk about are these assemblies, which we did make a change to the sheathing, which I don't have any set up here, and the trim assemblies. And if you aren't aware of these, there is a really good video on smartbuildsystems.com that gets into these assemblies. It gets into how these relate to the product systems. But I'll give a quick overview, and I'll kind of demonstrate something that is new with this release. But basically, these assemblies can be used, like in this case, you can see I'm under the trim assemblies. You can also do these for the sheathing, any sort of panels or even shingles or board and batten. But in this case, we're looking at the trim assemblies. I have one set up for a flat ridge cap, and I'm calling this one line 1. And so if I click on this, I get some information. I'm actually going to double click on this. You can add these as well. I've already added a couple here. I'm going to double click here and it'll pull this up. This is what it looks like when you add them also. So the way that these work is you pick a material out of your database. In this case, I have this flat ridge cap in my trim database. And so I've selected that, and basically these assemblies allow you to say, when I pick, if I'm using this flat ridge cap in a job or on a building, on a roof, then I'm going to define the stuff that's going to go along with that flat ridge cap. And in this case, I just have closure. A lot of times these are set up to really do fastener closures, underlayment, that kind of thing for specific materials. It may be for G-rib, you have specific screws that you use and different types of underlayment, and then for your standing seam, you have something else. And then potentially, for different types of trim, you need different closures or different fasteners. And really, these could be whatever you want. It's not just closures and fasteners. It can be whatever you want it to be. Once you get these set up, what you can do is filter these so that when you go into a job, you can pick specific systems for like G-rib, and then you're only going to get the materials and the things like the screws and the closures that apply to the G-rib product. In this case, with the flat ridge cap, you're only going to get the closure. This is just how I have this set up. I just have one special closure set up for the flat ridge cap. And these get a little bit complicated. Hopefully that kind of made sense. But like I said, there is a video that really goes into detail on these. And so if you're interested in these, go see that. That'll give you more information. That probably make more sense. But what we've done in this particular release that people have requested is we've added in the ability to, I guess, filter these and also to use multiple product systems. So the systems, you can set those up at kind of a high level to where, you know, you have a system for G-rib, and then you have everything that's associated with G-rib, and then you have a system for standing seam. And that, you know, that can include the trims as well. I have kind of a made up system here and kind of a situation just for simplification of this. And the thing that is new is that I can use the same flat ridge cap, but I can put this one into this particular system, which I'm calling product line 1. And when I'm using this product line 1, I'm using this Z channel closure for this flat ridge cap. But I also have another assembly set up here called flat ridge cap line 2, I'm just calling it. Still using that exact same trim part, but in this case, I'm using the product line 2 system. And in this case, I'm using kind of a more typical ridge cap closure, maybe like a foam closure or something that I have in my database. And this is kind of a test database. I am using the test database that I have set up just because I had some things set up here. So the thing that is new here is that we can use the same material, but we can filter it with different systems. And depending on which system we're using, I have a different closure for this. So, you know, yeah, I think that's probably the typical situation where people wanted to use this. But basically, you can have a single trim product and have it in multiple systems. And then depending on which system, you can apply different fasteners or closures or, you know, whatever kind of situation you're getting into. I mean, with like asphalt shingles, you can imagine if you have board and batten, you know, you're going to want a whole bunch of different materials. So anyway, we'll see this in a job. I'll demonstrate this and go and see that video. It'll hopefully make some more sense. So yeah, I think that's everything that I'm going to talk about in terms of that, and we'll see that in a job coming up. So that should make some more sense. The other thing that I wanted to point out here, I guess I'll go back into the setup wizard. Specifically for panels and sheathing, you know, these are some of the materials I have in here. If I go into this ag panel, say, there are some new fields here that you may notice, and it's the maximum length and the underlap length. And if this is useful for you, what it'll do is you can set a maximum length, and you will never get, for this particular ag 40 or 29 gauge panel, you will never get a panel that's longer than whatever you put in here for maximum length. And this is inches. We just decided to keep this consistent, so you will have to kind of calculate that out. But you know, if you have a maximum length that you don't want to go over, you can enter that number in here, and it will never give you anything over that length. If you do have a roof that goes beyond that length, what is going to happen is you will get a panel at your maximum length, and then it's going to come and look at this underlap length, which this is going to, you know, underlap underneath this maximum length panel. And if you put in like 6 inches, it's going to underlap that 6 inches, and then it's going to continue this next panel up the roof. So if you have a 20-foot maximum length, you may get a 20-foot panel. And if your roof is like 30 feet in length from your eave to your ridge, and you have a 6-inch underlap, then you're going to get a 20-foot panel. It's going to underlap 6 inches, And if it's 30 foot total, you're going to end up with a 10-foot 6-inch panel with the underlap and then that 10 foot to finish that off. And if you do have like really long roofs, it'll kind of continue that process. You could get multiple 20-foot panels and then something to finish it off. So this is really for the bigger kind of roofs, but just so you're aware that these are here now, you can use these. And if you're wondering what those are, that's what those can do for you. And that's per panel. So you can have that a different number for your G-rib than you do for your ag panel. I don't really have anything set up there, and that will report on all the outputs, your material list and also your drawings. It'll break that all out and you'll see how that's laid out. Okay, so I think we just got one more thing here, and this is related to the trusses. And for the trusses, we have added in a new column that we use for materials. So a lot of you have seen this before with the Vendor Sku. And basically that allows you to just define your own SKU. SmartBuild has a SKU that it creates, and for materials especially, it needs kind of a SKU that understands, this is using specific colors and different lengths, but you can define your own SKU to report. So we've done something similar to trusses, a little bit probably of a different reason for this. Basically what this will allow you to do is you could have the same SKU for multiple trusses. Some of you may remember last time we added in the ability to kind of have a range of trusses. And this is kind of similar and really just covers all of your bases. And I only put in one vendor SKU here. So I entered in a vendor SKU here for this particular truss. And you can enter this right here, and this can be whatever you want it to be. And I could also come in here, I could copy this and paste this to multiple, and you can have multiple trusses. So if I go into a job, it's going to pick this 30-foot, 4-foot on center truss with 412 roof, etc. So when a truss meets all of these properties, it's going to pick this truss from my truss catalog. And before, it's going to give you this SKU. Now, if I get this truss, I'm going to get this vendor SKU one that I entered in here, just something I defined. In this case, if I added this vendor SKU here, if I have a job that is, 44-foot span and a 4-foot cantilever and all these other things, I am also going to get it reported as a vendor SKU one because I added in this vendor SKU. I don't think this really makes sense, but just to demonstrate that if you have this vendor SKU, it's going to pick this truss based on all the properties, but it doesn't really care what the SKU is or what the properties are. You're just going to get this vendor SKU. And this could have helped with that, like a range. Some people have a range of the loading, and they just use the same truss for whatever loading, for a certain range of loading. We could have used that for this. The other places probably could come in handy is if you have trusses that just mirror each other. We do have some cases like with mono trusses and where you have a post on one end, but you don't have a post on the upper end potentially. Or if you have on a left, you have a base on your mono truss, and the right you don't, but you can kind of flip those or mirror them, and you don't distinguish between those in terms of what you ship out. But sometimes in the program we do, we have to have you input the difference between the left and the right. So there's some different situations here where you can have different types of trusses in your database, but maybe they really end up being the same SKU. So this SKU is going to get reported on your material list, your truss lists, pick lists, and that kind of thing. So you can come in here, you can do it manually. You can use the upload and download process here, where if you download this, it's going to have this vendor SKU column. And I think it's going to come in matching this SKU, actually. It just matches this. But you can override that. And so then if you want, you can group some different trusses underneath one SKU, if that's going to help you with your accounting system or just the way that you ship trusses out. And we'll see that coming up here in a job. Okay. I think that's pretty much everything here in the settings. There's kind of quite a bit going on with the settings here, so it'll take a little bit of setup to utilize some of these. But now we'll go into a job and demonstrate a few other things, and then we'll kind of see some of these settings in action as well. So this is a job that I had already set up. And I might use this like right now as a time. I am on beta. We did release this to live, so you are seeing the latest software. This is available right now. We did get an issue reported with quoted jobs. So if you do have quoted jobs and you try to open them, you're probably going to get an error. So it looks like it's kind of something that snuck through. Good news is we have a fix for that. It's going to be coming up here shortly. Like after we finish this webinar, we should have a fix coming up for that, assuming everything checks out. So it's just kind of a little issue. So if you try to open your quoted jobs, you're probably going to have an error, but that's shortly going to be fixed. Okay, so here we are in a job that I had set up before, and I guess we'll demonstrate a couple things. Maybe while it's a little bit fresh on our mind, we'll go into the job review and look at the trusses, which just happened to match that one truss we were looking at. And I probably we could have gone in there and looked at some of the properties of that truss. But if you click on this, that truss that I added the vendor SKU to, it meets these properties here. It's 30-foot span and the 412 pitch. So this is all the settings for this particular job. And as you can see, when it came up with the SKU, it is reporting that vendor SKU that I entered in here. This particular truss, which is just a common, it's not the Gable. So this other one, I just put the vendor SKU on the Gable, and this is really for demonstration purposes. But in this case, it just reported the actual SKU, and then it reported the vendor SKU for my Gable, because that's the only one where I put in that vendor SKU. But we could have had both of these trusses potentially with the same SKU. That might be another case where, I don't know, maybe your Gables and your commons are the same, but you kind of want to break them out for some reason, but you could have the same SKU reported. So anyway, there's that vendor SKU being reported here. That is going to report on any sort of your outputs again. So let's look at a couple other things here. And I guess while we're here, we'll look at this webbed header. So for this particular opening, I did go into the advanced edit settings, and I went into this overhead door, and I overrode the truss carrier. And so I'm using, I think, a 2x12 or something here, double 2x12 for my truss carrier. But I went into this opening and I said, I want to use this new web header that I have. And so just kind of an example of how you could use that. But you can use that web header over a more traditional header. You could use that for your truss headers. You can use that with open walls and in a lot of different situations. So that's just what that webbed header kind of looks like. Just a generic look to it. And you can do a different color. I chose the red iron, which we might adjust this a little bit at some point, but you could also do a gray iron or black or some different colors that you can use. But there's that webbed header in action. And I guess maybe I'll show you real quick here. Just so I went into this advanced edit to this wall and then into this opening itself. And if you, in this case, if you override the truss carrier for an opening, So I changed it from a double to a single, and I changed it from like the 2x10 to this webbed header bar joist that I added onto, you know, the options that I have for my truss carrier material. And so once I did that, it will just put that header right over the top of the opening. And this is different than the header high. We do have the header high where it's actually going to run a header that span the bays depending on the situation. But in this case, I just decided to put that webbed header just above the opening there. But you can also have that for like your header high material or just your typical header for the openings as well. You know, let's take a quick look here with these assemblies. And so for that assembly, that was a roof trim item because we were just looking at this ridge cap. And so you can see here, I actually right now have selected that flat ridge cap line 2. And when it has a plus, that means it's coming from an assembly. We could just use a different material that's not part of an assembly, but this is the couple that we were looking at. And if we go to the trim here, it did calculate this ridge cap 3-foot closure, which I might need to look at how I set that up. I don't think the math is right on that one. And that's something I can change and fix. But it is using this kind of, maybe it's more of a foam closure. If we do switch over to the line 1 assembly, then it's going to use the Z channel that I had set up for that. So it's the same ridge, but I'm using these different closures depending on the situation. I'm able to just kind of switch between those. The systems are up here. I have none selected for my system, which just kind of means whatever can be used out of the database. If I switch over to this product line 2 system, let's see what happens here. I believe what's going to happen, it's going to kind of force, yeah, I didn't really like that, but it's, it forced me into that product line 2 trim system. So if we go over and look at the roof trim, it switched over to that flat ridge cap 2. And that's because I set this up to only be able to be used with this product line 2 system. If I switch over to product line 1, then it's only going to allow us to use that Z channel. So that product line 2 system, I have some work to do on it. But so if we go back here, and if we look at this roof trim, now I have a couple options here. So in this product line 1, I can choose between 2 different things. We could switch over. I guess I have these 2 kind of set up very similar. So anyway, those the product systems are filtering what's available here to choose for the ridge cap. And then if I have none, you kind of have access to everything, and then you can choose between the different types of ridge caps and get some different closures and fasteners if you need to. And again, go look at that video if you're interested in those and haven't used these. It'll make a lot more sense. Okay, I think that's kind of everything that we looked at there in those settings. So we'll look at a few other items here. One of a fairly big change that we've had quite a few people ask for is I have these overhead door openings, and like on the sidewall, you notice that if we look at my spacing for these, I have 12 foot on center. And the change here really is that we are removing posts now. If you have these openings with these structural jamb posts, that you know, the spacing is less than the spacing that you have selected for the particular type of wall. even if that post should fall on center. So in this case, there was a post that went right down the middle here, but we are removing that now because we have these two jamb posts here and the spacing is less than the 12 foot. And then same kind of thing is going on here with the gable wall where there was a post that would come right down the middle here. And so a lot of people were saying they had to get rid of these posts, and you could go in and do custom spacing and get rid of them, or deal with somehow trying to get rid of those posts. Now we are automatically just getting rid of those in these situations. This is going to apply all the time on the gable. For the side walls, this is only happening right now because I have a quote-unquote structural truss carrier with this double truss carrier. If you are using like bay spacing, or if your post and your trusses are tied together, it's not going to do this for you. It is going to keep those truss and post connected unless I think you override, like you could do a webbed header up here that can span these, and you could get rid of posts if you wanted to do that. But you would have to you'd have to override that and make it a structural kind of truss carrier, which you could do. But if you are using a double truss carrier like this, it is going to get rid of these posts. If that's not what you want, let us know. We can give you some options with this, but we decided that we just kind of universally in this situation get rid of those posts. So in this case, I'll just delete this, and then we can kind of just see where these posts would have actually been. So maybe that actually, I thought that was a good example. I might have changed my spacing actually when I did this, but so let's just we'll add in another one here and see. So if we put one like here, or maybe I'll just put it in the center here and we'll see what happens. I think it's going to get rid of this one. This guy, yeah, it should keep that one. Oh, didn't get rid of that though. Which, yeah, I'm not sure why that wouldn't be the case. Mark, you might be able to chime in on that one. This one, if I delete this opening, you definitely should see. So that's the post that it got rid of. So if we go in here and put an opening here, then you'll see that this post, even though it's on center, it's just, we're saying it's obsolete and we're just getting rid of that. Yeah, this might be a case where it kind of confused the program here. But let me see if we just switch that over a little bit. So it did get rid of it there. So I don't know, there might be a couple kinks to work out there. So yeah, if you have feedback on that specifically, let us know. We can make some adjustments to those. All right, the next item on the list, something to be aware of. We have changed a little bit how some of these defaults work when you apply porches or attached buildings. And specifically, we're looking at, I think, mostly the roof details here, like the roof framing. So in this case, I'm going to change these to a parallel core truss just to kind of demonstrate. So you'll notice some of the settings I have here for my roof. Parallel core truss now, I'm using wood and the heel height and this parallel core truss depth and the spacing. And I am using trusses here for this job. If we go in to put a porch, maybe we'll put one here on the back. If I click on this button here in order to input a post, this is a change where before we just kind of assumed that if you're doing a porch, you want to use rafters. I think for some of you that might have been the case. You might use trusses on your main building and then rafters on your porches. And so that worked out pretty good. For a lot of people, that wasn't a good assumption to make. And we're going to continue to do some work on the settings here and what you can control with these attached buildings. But right now, this is what we've done and just something to be aware of. And if you do have feedback, let us know. But right now, what we're doing with this release is we're matching the settings that you have for the main building, basically. So when you're putting on any sort of an attached building, a porch, or even another gable kind of building, a lean-to, it is going to match the settings that you have for this main building at the time that you create it. So if we pull these down, I have the same spacing and the same heel height, and it is also using the same parallel cord truss. So a lot of those kind of settings, they're going to just carry over from your main building. So if you do like using your rafters on porches, but you use trusses on your main building, you're going to have to change that to rafters. And so hopefully that doesn't upset too many people, but let us know. You can give us some feedback. So here's my porch with the parallel cord trusses here. And one thing here that I wanted to point out with this as well is we have in the program, in this situation here, if we take a look at this, you can see that we do have kind of a structural post, and the program thinks about this as being like a wall underneath this mono truss, and it gives you a little base here for support on top of this. And that's reflected in the truss itself. So when it's looking to find this truss, the property of the truss is what is the base over here. Before this release, we were assuming that this upper one, was also requiring a base, and it would look at this wall and try to figure out a base. But what we've done at this point is we've really gotten rid of this base if there is no wall below the top of this truss. So in this type of situation here, we do have a base on the bottom, but there is no base at the top, just like being hangered potentially in this case. And if we do go look at the trusses here, and we could go into the drawings and look at the truss layout just to get some labels of these. So if we go and look at these T2 trusses, didn't find anything in my database. I just don't have anything in there. But you can see that one of the bases has a 7-inch and then the other has 0. And I think this left and the right is something that we have a little bit of work to do on, but you can see that it's using the one that's on the wall is the left base, and that one that is the higher end is the right base, and it just has a 0 base. So you can set these up in your database now to have one side with the base and this upper side with these mono parallel cord trusses to not have a base. And we'll be doing some more work on these to give you some more options. But for now, that's how that's going to work. So just something to keep an eye on, and you might need to adjust your truss catalog. And this may be a type of situation here where you can use that vendor skew if it's the right or the left base. Maybe it probably doesn't matter. You can just switch those. So you could have the same vendor skew for a right and a left base, and that way you'd be covered no matter where this falls on the building or which way the program thinks of that as a left or a right base. One more thing that is just new in here that we could take a quick look at, if we see if we can get this to display. But if we do use rafters, so if I switch over my roof framing style, we'll get away from the trusses for this main building anyway, and we can use rafters. And so now I have these rafters, And then we're it kind of takes over into the rafter framing now. So if we want to make adjustments to these, we can in the rafter framing. And you can do double rafters. And I guess we actually did have these before for the double rafters. Let me see what, yeah. So I think this is really something that's probably, it's already been in here. You could do these double rafters. I think this really was a steel situation. So yeah, never mind on that one. That one I think is something that was already in there pretty much. Okay, I think that is all the new stuff. Quite a bit of stuff in there, quite a few settings. So again, we can get into anything else that we need to here. We can open it up for any questions on this or anything else. We will record this, and then you can utilize our support line to get more information on these. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it for now. And unless maybe Paul or Mark or anybody on the SmartBuild team, anything else that you think people should know about that I didn't cover here? Or any questions maybe that came in? I wasn't keeping an eye on the chat.
Only Megan, she said, will there be an option to add a trim piece where those, if you have the panel lengths and you have an overlap of the panels, she's saying that they put a trim part of some sort. She didn't specify what that trim part was, but they put a trim part at that connection. So I know it could be done with a package or something, but as far as a specific trim part for an overlapped sheeting, I didn't hear us talk of that at all while we were discussing.
Yeah, we do not have that available right now, but that is good feedback. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like we do that, I guess, with a wainscot kind of, or if you have like a gable break on the wall.
I'm not sure what she's meaning or how that trim part goes. If she could pipe in here and explain what's happening.
Well, basically, I think she's saying that when they have to break a piece of sheeting partway up the roof, they have a trim part that they use there. Our assumption is that when they do that, they're just going to overlap it by that overlap length. But it sounds like there's also sometimes the need for a piece.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
We didn't think about that, Megan, but we will add that to the list. Have to think about how that would be structured.
I assume it's a lot like this wainscot trim, except on the roof.
Yeah, it gets a little bit tricky because you can have, they don't necessarily line up. I mean, on just a gable roof, yes, they would, but.
So you might have stair steps kind of with like a valley.
Yeah, with like a valley situation or something like that. You could potentially have some weirdness. We'll just have to think about all the details.
Okay.
How to make that happen. We weren't aware that it was something that people would need, so we hadn't even given any thought. But thank you, Megan. All right. So Jason said it's about time that post action was implemented. So he likes getting rid of the posts between the structural openings. He also said, is there anything being done about the inability to add 3-foot windows and doors in 4-foot spaced posts? Yeah, so if your posts are 4 foot on center and you try and put in a door or window that's too wide to fit between those posts, it will not. You'll just get a stop sign saying you can't put it there. I thought we did do something about that, where we basically said it. So if you try and put in a 4-foot window,
4 foot wide.
Yep. Yeah, so it'll let you put them in there now.
Yeah. Is that new?
We'd have to, well, yeah, I think we did that last release actually.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Jason's still having issues with that. I think, Jason, that's probably worth an offline meeting with our support staff, and we'll take a look at what's going on in your particular scenario, because, I mean, as you can see, he's able to put a window in here. It doesn't stop you from putting in there. Now, it does make it a structural window because it's taking out one of your structural posts at 4 foot on center. But yeah, if you can schedule, just reach out to support and just say, hey, I'd like to show you this issue I'm having with putting 3 foot windows in 4 foot on center walls. And then Jesse Beachy asked, is there options for changing cupola colors? Yeah, you can paint them whatever color you want when you put them on the roof. Within the software, no. I believe, yeah, if you go to cupola, yeah, I believe the colors that we use for the cupola are, yeah, you'll have to toggle the shell. I can't remember, but I think offset is spelled wrong. How come nobody told me that?
We're just seeing how long it would take you to notice.
Yeah, there you go. Based on feedback, the base, yeah, the base and the walls and the roof match the roof color, and then the louvers match the wall color. So if you change the roof color, it'll change the color of the cupola.
I guess I didn't put a slope on my roof for that one. That's a little better. Okay.
There we go. So now if you go and change your colors, go back to main building and change your colors.
Mm-hmm. Let's do red. It'll stand out. So that's the trim. Didn't matter. Oh, so it's the roof.
Doesn't matter. It's the roof color and the wall color. So if you change the roof to gallery blue.
So the trim and the roof of the cupola matches the roof.
Yep. And then the wall color is the louver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are kind of hard coded, but it'd be nice to be able to give more control over those colors for cupolas specifically.
Yeah. So Jesse, which what would you like to be able to do for the cupola
colors? I would like to be able to change my trim colors to like with the trim color of the building instead of just the roof and the wall.
So by trim color, what do you mean?
So like let's say I had a copper building, or let's say a crimson red building with black trim, and my roof is crimson red and my walls are crimson red. And when I have my cupola would become crimson red. So I would like to be able to take the trim and make the trim, you know, let's say a black, like the color of the building, the trim, and have the cupola, the rest of the cupola crimson red.
I guess the question would, so what we've done currently is we have the roof, we have the base, we have the basically the frame around the window or louver, and then we have the louver. And right now the roof, the frame, and the base are all roof color, and the louvers are always wall color. So those are kind of the 4 things that we can play around with colors on. The feedback we got from customers was that this is what they want. So, I mean, we used to have the roof of the cupola was the roof color and the walls of the cupola were the wall color. They told us that's not what they do.
Okay, so yeah, all I'd want would be able to itemize the trim color on the cupola. It's not a big deal. I didn't know if there was a way to do it or not, but I just haven't found it. But, I didn't know if it's simple, but we could do it or not. And, it's not too big of an issue.
Okay. So just a little bit more granularity and control over the colors of those parts on a cupola.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get that captured and come up with a plan. Okay. Also desperately waiting for an extra tab or 2 to be added to the job review so we can add extra items to our quotes. Yeah, we were discussing that issue the other day. If you go to job review, Sean. And I think one of the requests was a fasteners group. Trying to remember the details of that, but basically being able to have a few extra tabs.
Which we have a plan for this.
Mm-hmm.
I would pull it up in our system. I don't know, Mark, if you have access to it. I mean, we detailed out. I think basically you could rename these. And I think we also talked about being able to just add additional tabs. Right? So that is something that we do have on our radar. I know we've heard that many, many times. And that will be coming. Some of the details are escaping me.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for the task. Okay, so related stories. Yeah, so allow users to customize the job review tab. So users can rename, add, and delete tabs on job review. They can define which usages go in which tabs. There's some details around packages and assemblies, and redirect to new tabs for existing packages and assemblies. So, yeah, a couple related ones. We've had people request being able to split framing into roof framing and wall framing. Being able to add and name an extra tab under the job review page. That was one. Foundation tab is another one. And basically we sort of lump those all under, hey, if you could control, right now we've got these tabs, and anything that has a category of framing goes to the framing tab, or anything that's in a package or an assembly that was told to go to the framing tab goes to the framing tab. All of your roof and wall sheathing go to the sheathing tab, as well as the package and assembly entries. Trim parts go to the trim tab. Doors and windows, as well as door and window add-ons, unless you told them to go somewhere else, go to the door and windows tab. Trusses go to trusses. Anything that's labor or freight goes to the labor and freight tabs, and everything else goes to accessories. So that's currently how it works, and what we're planning is to basically encode that stuff that I just rattled off there and allow you to change that and say, look, here's all the framing that goes to the framing tab. And I've got posts and corner posts and purlins and rafters and all these girts, things like that. And I want to say, no, I want to name this one roof framing, and I just want my purlins to go on here. and my rafters. And then I want wall framing, and I want my posts and my girts and my headers and base skirt boards and all of that other stuff to go there. Or maybe you want your truss carriers to go with roof framing. So you would have all of that flexibility to define what standard parts go to which tabs, what those tabs are called, what order they're in, and also obviously where all of these materials that we add for weather stripping and exterior nails and all that other stuff, where those things go. And foundation would be another, hey, I want a tab called foundation. What's going to go in there? Well, all my foundation parts, which currently go to the framing tab. So that's what we're planning. We don't yet have a schedule for when that will come out. We haven't assigned that to a release yet, but sounds like it gets another vote and moves up the list.
Yeah, I think that'll be coming relatively soon. Something we need to do.
Okay.
Tyler from Flynn Lumber asked about how do you match color of eave soffit with rake soffit? If you're talking about the gable soffit, whenever you say rake soffit, that's just a setting in your fascia and soffit tab. Yeah, under details. So if this is what you're talking about, you just
We don't have any overhangs, so it won't show up, but
right.
Yeah.
But this is where there would be eave soffit color and gable soffit color. You can pick what color you want for that. So I'm not sure if I understand the question 100%, but this is my understanding.
So it's to match
Yeah.
the eave and the gable soffit. Is that?
Yeah.
so he says, how do you match color of each soffit with rake soffit? And I think you just set them the same color. So
yeah.
if you tilt that up so we can see the soffit, Sean. Yeah.
Big piece of trim.
Yeah, well, you can see the soffit a little bit.
But then
So if
here,
you go to, fascia and soffit, change your,
matching the walls for both of these.
so you can make that match accent 1 if you wanted, or interior wainscot. I'm not sure why you would do that, but generally you're going to match the wall or the roof or the trim color.
No, they don't match, but we set them both to the same color, then they should match.
Does that make sense, Tyler? Now, one of the wrinkles is those questions might be hidden in your framing rules, so you'll have to unhide them if they are.
And you can use these accent colors.
Yes. Just so you know, Tyler, I'm looking on your distributor. And what I see in the fascia and soffit, you've got eave soffit color set to wainscot and gable soffit color set to wall. So that's why you're getting two different colors for your soffit.
So you can also match them to the accent color, and then you can change that to
Anything.
whatever you want if it's something different.
Yeah. It sounds like you just had them set differently. You had one of them set to the wainscot color, so.
Okay. Yep.
He says, yep. So we're good.
Okay, anything
All right,
else?
well, as with, oh, one more thing, Jason says.
Mhm.
Please share. Can you add an overhead door model with a row of windows? I believe we have an overhead door model with a row of windows, but I don't know what it's called. You have to go to the canned models or go to the door and window. One thing that we are talking about doing, if you go ahead and go to home, Sean.
Okay. I have something with glass here in mind.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Go to doors and windows. Yeah, that's not quite what he was looking for, I think.
probably not.
But
Go home.
yeah, go ahead and go home and go to the doors and windows. Because one thing that we were talking about actually just the other day on the long list of nice to have features is when you're putting in doors and windows and you're setting the 3D model. Yeah, go ahead and go home, go to the doors and windows under settings. So if you click on one of those guys and then set 3D model. Not double click it.
Set 3D model here. Okay.
Yeah, so here we've got a whole bunch of doors. Yeah.
Scroll down the list and you'll see all our OBJ files: doors, windows, garage door.
Yeah. But as you can see, number one, this is a really long list. And number two, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And so what we're planning to do is, first of all, split out walk doors, overheads, and windows into separate categories so that you can see all the OBJ files for walk doors. And then also, this is just description. We want to show a little thumbnail of each of these doors here so that you can actually see what they're going to look like and say, yes, that's the one that I want. Most of these are doors. I think we're looking for garage doors or overhead doors or something. So as you can see, it's very difficult to deal with this list and to find the 3D model that you want. The other place where you'll see this, if you go ahead and cancel this and double click on that garage door. Yeah, the overheads. So there's the select button there under 3D model lets you pick which one you want to use. And this is another case where it's the same list. Boy, sure would be nice if I could see what these things look like without having to go select each one and then look at it and go, nope, that's not the one I want. So that's what we're thinking of there. As far as whether there is an overhead, do you know of one off the top of your head, Paul?
You know, we used to have one in there, and I'm looking for it now.
Try,
And I just don't
try
see it.
window. Try window, Sean, instead of glass. Or there's garage glass panels. Garage big panels with windows.
Oh, those are the windows down the side. Yeah.
Those are the windows on the side.
If Royden is
So
on,
the short answer, Jason, is yes, we can do it. And I think we already have, but I can't tell you off the top of my head which one it is. So we will get some information on that and send it to you, Jason.
If Royden is on, I thought I saw Royden was using a garage door like that, but I think it was just
Yeah,
on his personal.
yeah, Paul, there are like, there's some with like 3-panel, 2-panel, 3-panel, 4-panel.
Arched
You can search-
windows.
Search for panel. And go to garage. Yeah, 2-panel. It starts out with 2 panels wide. It goes to 4 panels wide of each color.
The raised 2-panel white,
These guys here.
not the big panels down below, I think.
Okay, these the raised.
Raised 2-panel, raised 3-panel, raised 4-panel of every color. Those are our new ones that I've added.
Okay.
So those should be. There you go.
Well, those don't have windows though.
There's windows there too, if you look. There's like both versions, with and without windows of each color.
There we go.
All right, 2-panel with windows. So 2-panel, 3-panel, 4-panel. Jason says, thanks, Royden. Kevin says, raised panel with windows, I believe, has it. So again, it just underscores the fact that, boy, it sure would be nice if there was a picture I could look at and go, yeah, that's the one I want. So that's on our roadmap as well.
No.
All right. Well, as Keith mentioned at the start of this, we did have a couple of issues that came up as soon as we posted this release last night. One of them was if you have quoted models you quoted before, you won't be able to open them until we get this hot patch posted up there, which it looks like is going to be real soon now. I just posted it up on our beta site, and that is working there now. So we'll get that pushed up to the live site as quickly as we can. The other issue that came up is that we have some customers that on their pavilion style buildings, the canned models for pavilions, they had the wall sheathing set to none on the walls. And we put in some logic to handle none better. And apparently we're a little overzealous. So it is basically turning on sheathing on those walls. So we need to get that fixed as well. I'm working on that right now. And we'll get that as soon as we've implemented the fix and tested and verified that it does work. We'll get it pushed up to the live site as well. And obviously any other issues that you guys have run into that, hey, this worked yesterday, doesn't work today, please reach out to our support staff, let them know the specifics of that particular issue, and we will jump on it and get it fixed.
All right. Anything else? Going once, going twice? All right. Thanks, everybody.